I'm John Dennis. I'm running against Nancy Pelosi.
We have the most beautiful state and one of the most beautiful places in the world, and people are leaving.
I'm gonna catch you cameras on around, and I'm gonna you up. I'm tired.
He's the chairman of the San Francisco GOP, and he's running against House Speaker Nancy Pelosi.
Step back, everyone.
Well, hello, and welcome to the John Dennis Report on May 24th, 2021, Monday. Hope you had a great weekend and spent it with people you love and doing things that you like to do. Spring around the country, a lot of people enjoying the weather, so I hope you were out and about and doing your thing. So come on in. We got a lot to cover today. I'm going to have to do it quickly on a bit of a time crunch this afternoon. I want to say happy birthday to Bob Dylan, who turned 80 today. It's funny, maybe it's just because of the era that where I grow up, but I find myself constantly going back to late 60s, early 70s music. And of course, Dylan was a massive figure during that time. So anyway, congratulations and happy birthday to Bob Dylan, whose politics apparently are left of center. But I wonder how much he's changed and how open-minded he is. I wonder where he stands on today's atmosphere of cancel culture. I suspect that he, has been around long enough to realize a good scam when he sees one. So I'd suspect that he's at least very wary of it, if not something much stronger. Okay, anyway, happy birthday to him. Speaking of supposed singers, so I don't know if you've noticed this or not. Rand Paul, who not only I've supported, but I consider a friend, and we speak periodically. And so, he got attacked by a lunatic, a guy who was his neighbor. And I've spoken to Rand about this. I've spoken to his wife, Kelly, about this. Kelly's take is that they didn't have any relationship with this guy. They hadn't spoken to him in 10 years, other than to wave at him periodically when they saw him outside his house or when he saw them outside their houses. Just wave, sort of thing. And if you're not familiar with this story, this lunatic, Rand's not a big guy. He's maybe 5'8". He's fit, thin, smallish frame. This guy who hit him was like 6'1" and like 240 or 230 or something like that. And Rand was, okay, put yourself in this position. He's got headphones on, like ear protection, while he's using a blower on his lawn. He's got his back turned, and in the middle of that, some 6'1", 220, 240 pound lunatic comes up from behind him and tackles him, smashes him to the ground. I mean, this guy hit him hard. And so hard he cracked like 6 ribs, one of which was threatening to puncture his lung. So I thought Rand was actually sick of talking about it. So we're sitting in my car, and I said to him, "Hey, listen, I'm sure you're sick of talking about it, but I'm happy. I mean, if you want to talk about it as much as you like." And I got to tell you, he's a very close to the vest kind of guy with his cards. He kind of opened up and was talking about it for a long time. This thing really, people don't realize how badly injured this guy was, how badly injured Rand was from his neighbor, tackling him from behind like that. He had to go on a respirator. He got pneumonia because of this, these cracked ribs. Had to go on a respirator to breathe because he couldn't breathe at night. And made it to work apparently all the time, continued to do his job, but ultimately had to have, like a year later, had to have a piece of his lung removed because it was so badly damaged by these fractured ribs. And you've probably seen this, but from time to time on social media, someone says, I wish I was Rand Paul's neighbor. Where's Rand Paul's neighbor when you need him? I want to, celebrate Rand Paul's, attack in some way or another. And periodically, the people who do that are celebrities or former celebrities or has-beens or whatever they were. So go ahead, put that up, Laura. So last night this came up, and I just, it puts me in a weird position because let me just tell you what. So if you can go ahead and see the tweet, I don't know if you can see it all that clearly, but this guy Richard Marx, who I didn't look him up today, but as best I recall, he had some sort of soft rockish hits, and mainstream stuff, pop stuff in like the late 80s, early 90s. So for a brief period, maybe 18, 24 months, he had a couple of hits, three hits maybe. And so, it's largely been on the back burner, whatever. He accomplished what he accomplished in life. But for some reason, this guy is active, super lefty active, not only active, but like a really thoughtlessly active on Twitter, thoughtlessly lefty. Does all the stupid stuff, just repeats the propaganda and assumes things about you that you don't necessarily believe in, which you have to ignore. But last night he wrote, I read this just as I was going to bed. Yeah, it was 9:19. I'll say it again. If I ever meet Rand Paul's neighbor, I'm going to hug him and buy him as many drinks as he can consume. So, I've really kind of had enough of this shit, frankly. In politics, this is a tricky thing for me in politics because where I grew up, we got in fights. We, it was just, living in the projects in a place like Jersey City or, just being from the background. It's not something I'm thrilled about, but it is what it is. And so it's it's not an issue for me regularly in politics, but this sort of thing kind of connects with me. And also because Rand's a friend, I know what he went through. And for some jackass like this to celebrate, and he's got a few 100,000 followers on Twitter, for him to celebrate a guy getting attacked. Let me just reverse this for a second. Let's say it happened to a Democrat senator. I would go after anybody who liked that some Democrat senator was attacked in the way that Rand was attacked, or at any level. I'd go after them as well. It's a little more personal with me, with Rand because he's a friend, but I wouldn't put up with it. It's but this guy and other people seem to think like there's this real venom towards Rand. I think it's because of his stature. I think because he's not a big guy, and he doesn't play by the rules that people want him to play by. And so he questions things and he's thoughtful about different issues. So they feel like it's okay to take, to take swipes at him. And I just kind of had enough. So last night, one of my response was, now this is pointing out another problem. If someone says they support violence against Richard Marx, Twitter will ban that account. But Mr. Marx glorifies violent assault with no repercussions. And so that's the second topic of tonight. I'm going to come back to Marx here in a second, but that is this afternoon. The second topic is that Twitter's double standard. This came up again this weekend. It's in instances like this where the left makes violent, celebrates violence, as Mr. Marx is here. He's being cute about it, but he's saying that he's going to buy the drink of somebody who assaulted Rand. The left makes overt threats of violence regularly and doesn't get knocked off of Twitter. The left has not. If it happened, they would be screaming their heads off, and we'd certainly hear it. But you don't find accounts on the left being clipped. Most of the folks who I know, prominent folks who I know on the right, folks who I know on the right, if they had a decent following, they lost at least a third of their followers, as did I. Nobody on the left ever says that, and they get to do whatever they want. And Twitter does, say what they want, make threats of violence, and Twitter never says a thing about it. Never. It's interesting, by the way. Go ahead and go pick up this one on the last tab, if you don't mind, Mario. Yeah, so it's funny that Breitbart covered this. Singer Richard Marx longs to hug Rand Paul's attacker. Buy him as many drinks as he can consume. And so they even picked up on it, but they didn't pick up on my thread with him. Here's, by the way, in August of 2020, Bette Midler doing the same thing, celebrating a violent attack. If you can imagine if, I don't know, Cory Booker got attacked, and the right was sort of saying, hey, I want to shake the hand of the guy who broke Cory Booker's jaw and knocked his teeth out. Can you imagine what the response would be from the mainstream media, from the left? They'd go crazy, and rightfully so. And Christine Pelosi last year, I got into a little tiff with her as well. I said this is just wrong. I mean, she said last year that Rand Paul's neighbor was right for attacking him. I mean, they do this stuff all the time, and Twitter says nothing about it. So let's circle back now to my conversation with, and my thread with. Can you put this one back up?
It's up.
Okay, thanks. With Richard Marx. So I said, that Mr. Marx glorifies violent assault with no repercussions from Twitter, to which Richard Marx actually responded, and he, with some sarcastic, stupid response. Let's see what he said here. You see, Johnny Bob, like, by the way, like, he, again, this is just sort of like, this is in his mind, apparently, what every Republican is. He knows nothing about me. Not only am I urban, maybe even urbane, but I grew up in public housing. We were the last, one of the last, white families to move out of a really rough public housing project, and put myself through school, and been an actor, and ran open businesses, and I've done lots of interesting things. But for him, I'm just Johnny Bob. I'm some guy from the South, right? It's sort of an insult to anybody's intelligence. So he says, you're hero Fuhrer. He's attacking Trump, blah, blah, blah. And he's saying that I never said that he incited violence, by the way. I just said that Richard Marx supports violence indirectly. And then he calls Rand Paul a traitor. And then I ended up getting into a little back and forth with him. And that is, I just said to this guy, you're 160 pounds, you're 5'8", you're not scaring anybody. You're a sissy sitting behind a keyboard. No one's afraid of you. And then he responded, I'm bigger than you think I am, and if I ever have the unfortunate displeasure of running into you, you'll see that, and we can straighten it out there. And see, that's sort of the wrong thing to do. I mean, that's where I really have to bite my tongue, because somebody like Richard Marx, if I did run into him and he put it up, if he came up to me, I'm in a weird spot, because in politics I don't want to get into physical altercations with people, but I'll also defend myself, and I certainly won't take any shit from people. So anyway, it's just a thing that happens, and I've got to walk a fine line here, because these people are just so. It seems like nobody pushes back on people like this guy, like people like Bette Midler. Bette Midler got a little bit more of the the business, but for a little man, sitting behind his keyboard, glorifying and celebrating violence against anybody, but much less a senator over political stuff, is really despicable. He's just a creep. He's a thoughtless creep. And if we do run into each other, and I told him I'm going to be in LA this summer, and I'm going to announce when I'm going to be in LA, I'm going to announce exactly where I'm going to be. Let's see how that plays out. I hope it doesn't turn into anything, but I'm happy to discuss the matter with Mr. Marx in person. Okay, let's move on. He's a coward, and we can just leave him there. All right, the Wuhan Lab Leak. Let's just talk about that. So this story is out there. And let's put it up. So the Wall Street Journal broke this article, broke this story. And so the report says researchers from the Wuhan Lab went to the hospital in November 2019, shortly before the confirmed outbreak, and that they had symptoms similar to what ultimately happened in COVID. Okay. All right. So here's the thing. I want you to take a step back. Trump said this, right? He said this he disagreed with the intelligence agency's assessment of what the source was of the virus, that he'd seen evidence that said that it came from the Wuhan lab, and the intelligence community disagreed with him. But interestingly, a foreign source of intelligence was an undisclosed, actually several undisclosed foreign sources were the ones who released these documents. So it's a tricky thing. You don't know what to believe. You don't know what to believe. I mean, it seems like it makes sense, and it seems like evidence is mounting. I'm not sure that this qualifies as evidence. Maybe it does, but it seems like evidence is sort of moving in that direction, that narrative is the one that's coming out. And the only reason why I think it's true, well, listen, it totally makes sense that this is what happened, but the main reason why I feel like this is true is because this evidence is coming out about this, despite the fact that organizations like the World Health Organization are under the thumb of the Chinese. So despite that massive obstacle, these kinds of stories are being released, and the Chinese don't like it, of course. And that's the only reason why. See what we have to do. We can't just trust anything on face value. So you have to kind of look at these things and figure out, okay, what are the motivations of the authors? What are the motivations of the periodical, the news source? In this case, the Wall Street Journal. Why would they push this agenda? I mean, it used to not be quite this complicated, you know? And so now we have to look at different angles on every story and decide whether or not we can believe that it's true. It seems, most likely that this is what's happened. It seems most likely. I mean, I think the evidence is crystal clear that irrespective of ultimately what the source of the virus was, that Anthony Fauci approved clearly approved research at this particular lab, and maybe did kind of an oblique, cutie way of funding this gain of function research that would have created a virus like this. So I'm going to sit back and let this one play out. At this point, if I had to make a bet, I'd say, yeah, the source was Wuhan, the Wuhan Institute of Virology. I'd say it's also the same sort of stuff that Anthony Fauci was funding there and here in the United States, by the way. One of the things, speaking of Rand Paul, when Rand was questioning Fauci, and incidentally, this Rand questioning Fauci was one of the triggers for the people on the left to celebrate this attack on him, because you can't question Anthony Fauci, right? So Fauci, clearly signed off on the kinds of research in the U.S. for sure, and obliquely, indirectly, in Wuhan, that would have led to this kind of a virus. And so that part is ultimately clear. Now, we'll probably need a little bit more evidence and open evidence from open sources, people who will stand up and say, credible people who will stand up and say, here's the evidence that we present that shows that this came from this virus, this novel coronavirus came from the Wuhan lab. But we have to just I think we need one or more two pieces of evidence in order to move forward as if that's the final narrative and the confirmed narrative. But it just also brings me back to the situation with the intelligence agencies in the United States. And, for a long time, people have been like, oh, we have great people top to bottom, but bottom up to near the top, and some really good people at the top and some really bad people at the top of the intelligence agencies. That's where we're at. Like, I think of John Brennan being in charge of things, and James Clapper. I mean, the FBI guy, the tall guy. Thinking of those guys running, law enforcement or intelligence agencies, and they're creeps. I mean, first-rate creeps. John Brennan should be in jail. Clapper probably too. Clapper perjured himself in front of the world and got away with it. But I think we're at the point now where we really need, I'm going to make this, I'm going to call for this. The intelligence agencies, or the intelligence business, is really important to the nation. We have to have a functioning intelligence apparatus. The ones that we have right now need to be completely dismantled and reformed. We've got to disband them and blow them up and start from scratch, because they are in control of far too much. They have so much power. They have an apparent influence over the media narratives that are thrust upon us every day, and I just think we need to start. The apple is rotten to the core, and I think we need to scrap it, start all over again. Look, it would be cheaper to retire everybody in those agencies, at least the kind of the substantive people. Retire them with big pensions, give them piles of cash and send them off, and start over with entirely new agencies. Buy them off and send them into retirement, but just don't let them get their hands on the new apparatus. And try and get together a commission of decent people who can put back together the kinds of intelligence agencies that we need, because we can't trust them. They have their own political agendas. They have an enormous incentive to protect not America, but the Washington administrative state. And this goes back to something that I've been talking about for many, many years. It goes back to, I had a rally with Ron Paul, had 1,200 people on Labor Day in 2010. And the subtitle of that rally was "Ending Washington's War on Us." Washington, to them, we're just a big piggy bank. We're the people who are told what to do, and then we do it, and that's it. And we are there to service them. They're not here to service the country. In their minds, we are there to service those guys. So, in any event, that's what I think. We need a complete overhaul of the intelligence agencies. And they put Trump on the spot by asking him if he trusts the intelligence agencies, over what Vladimir Putin's word in front of Vladimir Putin. And when Trump wouldn't commit to the U.S. intelligence agencies, they basically called him a traitor. Well, they put me in front of anybody, in front of any camera, and say, do I trust what the intelligence agencies are saying? And I'll tell you frickin' no. They have their own agenda. And this is an enormous problem that has to get fixed. Anyway, so there's that. I mean, I just don't think we can fix Washington. I think we can elect the most amazing person to be president of the United States. They will be limited in what they can do for as long as we have this problem. We have these strong intelligence, and then the administrative state. As Steve Bannon points out, I got to tell you, I don't agree with him on a lot of stuff. I don't like his style's not exactly mine, but I got to say, he's dead right about that. The Washington administrative state, that's his term. He's absolutely right. Needs to be clipped and reformed. So there's that. Okay, I'm going to end it here today on this. Did want to mention I'm also the vice chairman, so I'm running against Pelosi. I'm the chairman of the San Francisco Republican Party, and my other kind of biggest, which has a lot of a lot of stuff to cover. Not only do I have to cover what's happening here locally, but we have the state party stuff and occasionally some national stuff. But also I'm the vice chairman of an organization called the Republican Liberty Caucus, which is a near and dear to my heart sort of thing, because that's really kind of the core of what I think the best part of the Republican Party is the emphasis on individual liberty. And so we have the Republican Liberty Caucus has a convention every 2 years. We are having it in June this year in Orlando, June 20, actually in 1 month, the 25th through the 27th. And I'll be there. And we were selling out. In fact, we were sold out. We were overbooked. And then we just contacted, in fact, so much so that the hotel is sold out. Now, this property, the Rosen Center in Orlando, has another facility, another sister hotel about a mile down the road, which is actually nicer. But they're honoring our arrangement with the Rosen Center in Orlando. It's called the Rosen Shingle Creek or something like that. And if you're interested, I would say come, because we spoke to them today, and we've upgraded our facilities so we can actually hold some more people now. So we are going to reopen ticket sales for the Republican Liberty Caucus biennial convention with featured speaker on Saturday night, Thomas Massey. Congressman Byron Donalds will be there. State Rep Anthony Sabatini from Florida will be there, plus some other interesting folks who we're talking to. So it's going to be a great time, June 25th to the 27th. And you go to rlc.org, click on events, and get your information there. But if you can join us, we'd love to see you. And we'd love to have you be part of the Republican Liberty Caucus. On that note, I want to thank you all for joining us today. Please punch that subscribe button on YouTube for the John Dennis Report. Follow us on Twitter at Real John Dennis, and Instagram as well at Real John Dennis. And thanks for joining us. Really appreciate it. Have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow at 2 p.m. on the West Coast, 5 p.m. on the East. Until then, have a great day.